He should react to Sneeko and Moist Critical. Okay. Bro, Sneeko be weird. I feel like that dude's on shrooms most of the time, and whatever his name is, Charlie. That was his name, Charlie. Yeah, Moist Critical situation is crazy. Full screen. Okay.
What a week, huh, sports fans? Holy Toledo. Yeah, so Moist Critical's in a big oopsie-poopsie situation here. It reminds me of the time in Moonfall when Casey Houseman sacrifices himself and dies of cringe to become the moon. Yeah, so
Pretty sure this guy's under fire, right, because of the debate and stuff, and like him having some interesting takes. I don't know. I saw stuff on Twitter that was like going after him about a bunch of stuff, but I guess that was only one side of the story, so this is his side of the story, so I guess we can see.
being serious now, since this has become such a big issue, I've been
This
in a
whole
lot of
debacle is
drama
just proof that a
recently.
lot of
I'm in
people
hot
are chronically
water, and I'm
online
biting
and
on
they
the
need to
fart
get
bubbles
lives.
that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement. I didn't know I was retiring. That's news to me.
Twitter was
I'm
saying
as
he was
shocked as
done,
all of
like
you are.
retiring.
I had a ton of fun last night playing a game called Clickleding, which is basically like a cuckoldry simulator, but for clicking against like the Lorax in a hotel room. And I just did like an old school gameplay commentary video. I was bubbly, full of jubilation. I posted it today only to learn that I'm just a big old fucking liar. Liar, liar, plants for hire, I
Yeah, I'm pretty
suppose.
sure that tweet didn't that
Apparently,
tweet
and
just
I
like
didn't know this until I posted
about
the
him
video.
like
Everyone
retiring?
was under
Wasn't
the
that just
impression
like
that I
something
was
like he
quitting
was
the
done with a
internet. So I started
podcast or
scratching
something?
the hair on my chinny chin chin, wondering when the fuck did that happen?
The tweet referenced a podcast and had nothing to do with his YouTube channel. Exactly. I'm pretty sure. I mean, people are just it's drama. People can use that as clickbait. Anything to get clicks and to get it's all people it's just clout chasers. That's just literally what everyone's doing nowadays.
Was I sleepwalking? Do I have somnambulism? Is this some kind of like, Fight Club situation? But instead of like Tyler Durden, I have fucking Charles Turden here that's just making wrong announcements. It turns out the patient zero behind all of this was a post Jackson made announcing that I would be leaving.
Yeah,
the
this is the tweet.
podcasts, which is something I thought about periodically for quite a few months now. Mainly because I started to recognize that I was becoming the very thing I'd make fun of with being chronically online. Like, I just was always online. And the podcasts were a big proponent of that, and I just kind of wanted
This
to
is the
scale
funny
back
thing
amount
about
of
the
time
internet
I spend
is like
online.
it's so
And I kept
unpredictable.
Jackson in the loop the whole time
You
here
can't
about
control
where
it.
my head was at, and last week I told him, hey man, I think this is going to be where I hang up the jersey. You can put it in the rafters, throw it in the dumpster, but I think I'm just going to be, sailing off into the sunset here and just reducing the amount of stuff I do online. Which he completely understood. So he made the announcement just letting people know that. And then that got spun on Twitter and Reddit as Moist Critical's taking an indefinite hiatus and quitting the internet
Well,
fundamentally.
duh, I could have told you that.
Don't know when I'll be back. He's done with the internet because of all this controversy.
People will do anything for click revenue on Twitter
Patooey
or just
on his
view
grave.
revenue
He's
on
gone.
YouTube. Anything
When
that people can do to take a situation and then, like, even if it's completely false, people will click on it and people want to see it. It's just like the way the rumors get spread online is crazy, and people make a ton of money doing it. I think it's freaking hilarious.
I mean,
It's unfortunate for the people that are affected by it. He's not really affected by it, but like the people are just chronically online and will literally believe anything that anyone posts on the internet. It's crazy.
Looking at the post, I don't even know where that's coming from. It's literally just talking about the podcast and me just stepping away.
What do you mean the internet is pure truth?
It doesn't extend
Okay.
beyond
No,
that.
I'm with you there.
I can't even wrap
Everything
my
on the
tiny
internet
rule around
is
how
absolute
anyone
fact
could
and truth.
perceive this as me being done with the internet entirely, but that's the story that they ran with, and that's what most people saw, not the actual post. So everyone thought I was quitting
Literally.
the internet, so I posted
People
that
don't look
video
at the
that I was
post, they
really
just look
happy
at
with 'cause it just felt
posts
like an OG
about
old
the
school
post.
video that made me happy. And then bang, just a flood of comments and dislikes all saying shit like, how could you fucking deceive us? I thought you quit, huh? What happened to leaving, huh? I just read this post on Twitter from an account that had a profile pic of titties photoshopped onto Thomas Edison that said you were done, and it had 50,000
Exactly.
likes, so I know it was true.
Exactly.
And you're just a fucking liar. I
Exactly.
can't even just peacefully walk away from some projects without it being a massive fucking reaction.
This dude Charlie
over
can't retire
actual
unless we
nothing
tell
burger
him he can
information.
retire.
And trust me, no one has a palate more refined for nothing burgers than me. I have ranted
At least he
about
owns
the
it.
stupidest shit of all time, but this was mind-boggling even for me. So to set the record straight, no, I'm not retiring, despite what the experts are telling you. All I did was walk away from a couple of projects. Like, that's really it. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to do, especially when one of them I've been doing for like 8 years. I really didn't think it was that deep, especially
I've
not
never
deep enough
seen
for.
I've never seen his podcast or whatever he's walking away from, but I wonder, like, to announce your departure from that, it's like, I wonder how big that podcast is. It's pretty big. Oh, well, apparently it's not very big because I've never heard of it.
How big of a story it's become with all of the wild narratives running around about the true reason that I stopped doing it.
The
So let's
truth.
get into that.
That's what we're
I've
after.
talked about it on stream.
truth.
I don't even know how many times at this point, but we'll just talk about all of it in this video here. So, when covering the Ava Tyson situation, I was attacked by a lot of people for not being quick enough. Even though I covered it within like the first 6 hours, people were unsatisfied that I hadn't made a video within like the first fucking 20 minutes of it dropping. And then when I did finally finish the full video covering all of it, it was another massive problem where now I only did it out of an obligation because people called me out, and then I also got accused of being a transphobe because I didn't use Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which were she, her. I didn't know that. I thought just calling Ava Tyson by her name was okay, and I had also heard when I went to the Mr. Beast thing, someone refer to Ava Tyson with they. So I was truly under the impression.
This whole snippet of what he's doing right now, I think, is completely unnecessary. The only thing you are doing is pandering to the community that's calling you out over the stupidest thing. All he did was make a video, and whether or not you abided by somebody's preferred pronoun, the fact that he's even addressing that is just stupid. People are calling it, like, just because you don't use someone's preferred pronoun is not, that's just ridiculous. And you know what? Honestly, I don't know why he would even address that, but you have to. You, like, once that community and the Pokemon community comes after you, like, they just fear cancellation so much because of, I mean, he's probably hiding behind some sort of wall like that with YouTube and a Mr. Beast collaboration, even though he says he's not. Like, I personally do believe that for the sake of views and clicks and popularity, like, people need to understand where, like, once you understand where the demographic is of your viewers, like, you have to pander to that community.
That was
which
okay.
is so funny to me,
and
because the only thing that tells me is that most of these YouTube channels do not have a diverse viewership. They're all the same people. They all have the same mindset. It's hilarious.
A good chunk of Twitter. And then annihilated by another good chunk of Twitter because I called out Sneeko, who was the main proponent about me covering for Mr. Beast to keep the collab alive. I wasn't talking about Ava Tyson because I wanted the Mr. Beast collab. And I talked about how absurd that statement was, especially given his history with fighting against the age of consent. He's been very vocal about how much he hates the age of consent, and so I talked about that briefly at the end of the video, which then changed the whole narrative for a lot of people.
That too is a stupid argument.
I never talked about Ava Tyson and only talked about Sneeko. So it was a complete lose-lose, because if I didn't talk about what Sneeko was saying, I would have been called a coward for not addressing it and talking about, like, well, he was going to cover for Mr. Beast until Sneeko called him out. So, like, if I didn't do it, I would have been attacked. I did do it, still got attacked. It really was unwinnable. But
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
A conversation where I talked to Sneeko directly, because he was very upset that I was talking about how him rallying against the age of consent is pedophile arguments, like defending pedophilia. As I've said since the very beginning of this channel, I'm always willing to engage with people I disagree with, and I thought that maybe there was a chance I misunderstood what he was trying to say, even though it's still abhorrent. I thought, okay, maybe he's not actually trying to.
Charlie's defense here is
like
quite plausible.
Intellectual debate bro who's trying to say something else. So I was willing
just
to hear
keep
him
watching.
Out on
He
it,
defends it even more. Okay.
And he said he doesn't believe in the age of consent. He believes in the age of marriage. Can't assign a number to it, but said that when someone can legally drive, they should be able to marry at the same time, which is literally like a 15 or 16-year-old, because you get your permit at 15, your license at 16, and both are way too young to be marrying. That shit is completely unacceptable. It is downright disgusting.
I would agree with
that
this.
He was happy to discuss it in a call, which I said I was willing to hear him out on, and he said that he would do it later because he was.
As Muslims, we believe it is our duty to follow the law of the land. It wasn't a spiritual question. I have no issue with any faith at all. This is a personal belief that your response didn't answer. I'm happy to discuss this on a call if you're that curious. People should legally drive and marry at the same. I don't know what Sneeko is trying to communicate here. I guess but then again, there's such thing as like arranged marriages.
Outside doing an IRL stream in Turkey. So I was willing to hear him out because, again, if this is some kind of crazy misunderstanding,
I don't know, but it's like when you're like, if you can drive, you can get married. I just don't feel like those arguments are even in the same realm. It's just like, it's like at 16 you have the cognitive ability to drive. What is Sneeko talking about? Yeah, I know these arguments are just kind of like, I feel like they're just on two different playing fields. Like driving and getting married are two different things. Like I understand. Yeah, it's just like, it's hard for me to like verbally communicate that or put words out, like let the words leave my mouth, because I just feel like they're different in a ways that's kind of hard to
I'd
articulate.
like to know that, because it'd be really fucking scary for someone in his position with his level of influence to be actually advocating for adults marrying and fucking children.
Well, that's a bit
It's
extreme
a
to
huge
say.
problem.
But if
That's
Sneeko's argument is that adults should be able to marry people under the age of 18, I would disagree with that. But for example, two minors getting married, like a 16-year-old marrying a 16-year-old, if it's an arranged marriage and both families consent, it is what it is, right? I'm sure there's those situations all the time.
a big fucking problem. So if there was something that he was like trying to say,
That's
but
still
failing to
gross.
do
I
so,
don't
was
understand how
willing to
that's
at least hear it.
gross,
this
because
is
now
what-
if it's an
Where
adult,
the infamous debate came from.
like if it's an adult marrying a minor, that's completely one thing. But if it's a minor marrying a minor, I feel like that's like, if there's consent of both families, like, yeah, like what are we to say?
The debate that people are
There are some
calling
weird
the debate
families
of the
out there,
century.
whatever.
I'm kidding, not a single soul on the
I
planet.
bet you have a
said that.
weird
It's
family.
actually one of the most dog shit debates I think human beings have ever had. He eventually called me on Discord. I was under the impression this was just him and I talking. I had no idea this was going to be a debate. I thought he was going to try and explain himself like, hey, no, this isn't actually what I meant. This is what I'm trying to say. I thought this was a conversation between him and I, not this kind of debate show that he was putting on for his audience. There is nothing in our DMs that indicated that's where it was going. When I joined the call, he asked if I was going to record it, to which I said, I can if he wants me to, but I was also down to just talk. So I thought maybe he wanted it as a recording to like explain to people
This
like,
is an
no,
interesting
he's not
side of the
actually
story.
a pedophile defender or advocating for that kind of thing. So I thought that is why he asked. I didn't know it was because it was being streamed, especially because one of his last DMs
That's not
was
cool.
about how he's doing an outside IRL
I can
stream
honestly
and he
see
would call
Sneeko
me
doing something
after.
like that, to
To me,
where
that
he
says when
didn't
he's done
tell this
streaming,
Charlie
that's when we'll
dude that it was
talk,
going to be
not
streamed, and
as
so
a
he's
part
catching up
of his
cog.
stream.
That's not
I didn't
cool.
know this was a debate nor a stream until about an hour
That's
and
kinda
40
crazy.
into it, roughly somewhere in that ballpark. I am not a debater.
Not fair.
I've never
Sneeko set him
claimed to
up.
be
I
one.
mean,
I
one
never
could argue
want
that,
to
but
be
then
a
again,
debater. I've always said that I believe conversations are
If-
the most productive because debates always
yeah.
devolve into what side can score the most points by explaining their thought process, even if the position is wrong. Whereas a conversation is a very different thing to me.
sure,
So I didn't even know that's what this was.
sure.
So obviously, I was unprepared for a fucking debate. So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear
You're
that I found his
unprepared for a
statements on the
debate.
age of consent and
Well, I mean,
children
at the end of the
marrying
day-
adults being fucking hideous. Absolutely
What is with this
revolting.
adult?
And then he started arguing
It's
about,
so
well,
weird.
what is a child? We must define a child, you know. It's not
If you're
actually...
concerned with what a child is, I think you need help. I guess Sneeko's issue is that he's trying to define what a child is. There are 22-year-olds that are still children. Well, I mean, you can act like a child. Like, like the saying, act your age. It's like, I don't know, like me. I'm in my late 20s. I've never been my age. So how am I supposed to act my age, right? Minor is anyone under the age of 18. Yeah, that's kind of what was stated. Like, that's the statute. It's just like anyone under the age of 18 is a minor. That's just what it is.
being under
At
18,
18, at 18 and above, you're
And
treated
I
and
really
tried
think
as an
if
adult.
you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child?
That right there, I would agree with
Like, that is
Charlie on
so
this one. That's
fucking weird.
that's a
And in
stupid
no
debate.
uncertain terms,
Really weird,
multiple
stupid
times
debate.
throughout the debate, Sneeko says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18
Yeah,
or
that's
older.
weird.
There are
We're talking globally.
That's
Let's just
weird.
talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, and I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone, do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
a 21-year-old. If there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families, and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Even get back a little bit.
Yeah, see, that's weird. This is where Sneeko's getting weird. It's just like, why are you even trying to argue that? I feel like the conversation would have veered or gone differently had he argued minor to minor. But in this case, Sneeko is literally arguing adult to minor, which, in my opinion, 10 times out of 10, he's going to lose that argument. That's just a weird...
Do you
That's
think
a
there's not a problem with a child?
I don't
being
even
with
have
an
to
adult?
think
Okay.
about that.
We
L
haven't
take?
even
Well,
agreed
yeah,
upon what,
duh.
what a child and an adult is. You keep
We-
saying
I
that
told
it's
you
18.
mine.
Why do
Yes,
we
child.
keep
And
trying
I'm
to
telling
define
you,
what a child
that's
is?
not even the definition of the word.
What is the number?
I just
it
told-
needs to be a number, or else you can do the same thing.
I just told you there's not a number.
Not a number.
But do you see why that's a problem?
No.
You
If
can't
there's no
marry a
defined-
fetus.
So why can't
a
a 12-year-old
toddler.
marry an 18-year-old?
Because most 12-year-olds haven't gone through puberty yet. And most
Okay.
12-years...
This whole-
What if as you just
This
said, it
whole
changes.
discourse
What if
right here is
12-year-old wants to
completely
puberty
retarded.
early, the parents consent, the 18-year-old and the parents consent, can they do it?
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
We're
there's-
not talking most likely. Just say it.
if the
Why?
families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready, why should I
At
stop it?
12 years old. At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically
This
mature,
this
parents
whole
consent,
this
both parties
conversation
are
is
happy.
retarded.
12-year-old
I'm
being
surprised
physically
that
mature.
this is even being had.
If that's the only line that actually makes sense.
Again, I don't think a 14-year-old can ever be physically mature.
Even though they literally can. Even though puberty actually defines that, it's fine.
I don't. Nope.
I just feel like that's
I don't
weird.
believe so. I was
I'm
14
I'm
once.
with Charlie on this one.
But I actually had a mustache when I was 14. Would you have looked at me and said I was physically mature enough to get married?
If you were physically mature, if you were mature, yes, I would.
You can't even.
Okay.
That's so.
Really?
Why
If
are
you
you
were
trying to define
14,
that?
Yeah. If you were 14 and you were ready
That's
to go,
weird
and
that
you
you're
met another
trying-
14-year-old, yes. I
Bro,
would.
Sneeko,
we're
what are
talking
you
adults.
doing?
You keep going back to that.
That is adult.
I met.
I told you my definition.
so-
I told you the
14-year-old.
definition.
Sneeko likes
The
kids. I-
definition, if you were went
It's
through
looking
puberty,
like
you're
it,
an
to be
adult.
honest
That's
with you.
the definition of adult. So yes, if you're an adult and you had a mustache, you're ready to get married, fine. Okay.
Unironically, saying a 14-year-old adult, I think, would make most sensible people want to puke. There's so many instances of this, and a lot of the conversation was spent with him.
Puke,
talking
I
about,
don't
like,
know, but just
overseas
the
age of
argument of that a
consent, like, talking
14-year-old
about
can
how
be an adult is just
Japan's age of
ridiculous.
consent was 13 for the longest time.
Yeah,
this and
no,
that.
this entire
But
argument or
the whole
this
thing
entire
was, like,
conversation is
pulling
just
teeth,
utterly
and
stupid.
It was fucking painful. And I think
I
it's
can agree.
extremely alarming perspective to have.
I can agree.
Unironically, calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is
You're not gonna argue
extremely
this. This isn't really an
concerning to be
arguable
advocating
position to
for
have,
something like that.
because like
Like, would Sneeko be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No one should be okay with
I mean,
something
from
like that.
Sneeko's thought
Like,
process,
that's
he's okay
fucking
with that.
Terrible. That is actually terrible. But now, since I wasn't like holding him to this topic or making sure it stayed on the topic I thought we were talking about, it went all over the place with a ton of different things. But the big one, and this is what most people have focused on, which was my response to his question about kids transitioning. And the way he would pose that question would be by asking if I thought it was okay if kids who want to switch their gender go to the doctor and get their dick cut off. Is it okay if a 9-year-old goes to a doctor and gets their cock cut off right then and there? And when posed with that question, I replied with yes. And I've talked about this on stream.
He said yes. L. Charlie, I'm gonna hear you out.
Many times now, and I'll talk about it again here. I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea.
This
that
is a
any
sketchy
living,
subject.
breathing human being actually thought that
Although
that's how
not hard to
transitioning works,
understand.
where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole fucking meat off. I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I didn't know he was speaking literally.
Okay.
I thought he was just referring to the entire process of transitioning and just using this over-the-top statement to encapsulate all of it. Because you literally cannot get that surgery unless you are 18. Yeah, like you actually have to
Harvard
go out
level
of your way to be
conversation,
that stupid on the topic
absolutely.
than you would just spending a couple of
Two
seconds
Harvard
looking it up.
graduates right here.
There are very
But I do get the
rare
vibe that
cases
Charlie
where
is
someone
trying to
under 18
communicate
has had
that
surgery
he,
performed.
not that he
That's
regrets,
not
but he's just like
common.
this
So I really
this
didn't
conversation
think
that he had or
that
debate with
someone could be
Sneeko
so dumb on the topic. I thought he was just speaking
was a complete
in
waste of time.
hyperbole, which is my mistake. I should have been more
Okay.
clear instead of making an assumption that he was talking about something nuanced in an over-the-top way.
Mhm.
I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of
Yeah.
transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that. And I'm also not afraid to admit
I
that
don't
am
necessarily agree with that because people can decide that on a whim and they can go get that done on a whim. Now, as to the official stance of what the statutes, I think that you have to be 18. I don't think that a minor can have that procedure done.
not the most educated when it comes to transitioning. I am
And
not
no
someone
offense to
that
anybody in
has
this chat,
a
but
ton
I'm
of
not
knowledge
going to take
about the
whatever you guys
subject
say
to be speaking on it in a really
as
in-depth
like,
manner.
yes, you can,
But
no, you
even
can't.
I know these
I'm leaning
very
towards the
surface
fact that
level
you
things
can't.
everyone
You
has
have to be
easy
18 in
access
order to have that procedure.
understand. It is a long
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And I have no problems at all if a kid gets interested in that process and starts going through that process with proper care. And then when they reach the age
Proper
where they can
care?
consider that surgery,
See, this is where he starts to get weird, like with proper care. I just feel like the whole mindset of even supporting a child through something like that is just a ridiculous mindset to have. When, like, that's, to me, that's like the opinion of having, like, oh, my son has now decided that he wants to do crack cocaine. You know, as long as there's a safe and effective way for me to support his doing and his smoking or boiling of a spoon or whatever that is of doing crack cocaine, just as long as you do it safely and effectively, I am okay if you do crack cocaine. Something that can that will undoubtedly alter your life. I'm not even using a worse enough analogy. Like the mindset that you approve, that you like have no, I mean, yeah, it's like you can't control what other families do, but being of the mindset that you are okay with, like, I completely disagree with this stance. I completely disagree with this. It's just like when people support other people, support children walking down a path that will forever change their life in a horrible way, I just don't support that. What future leaders of America, where are we? This is just retarded. That's just bad parenting. You should never support your child in a mindset like that. That's just stupid. This is definitely an L take for Charlie.
and decide they want to do it, then that's all power to them. That's
You know what?
entirely up to them. They have reached that age. They can now do that surgery if they want to. That is not a surgery that's being offered to like a 9-year-old who just says, I feel like changing genders today. It's just not how it works. And
But that's how people's minds work. That's literally, I mean, no, he's addressing a different issue,
I didn't
but that's
think
literally,
that's what was actually being discussed because it's so fucking silly. Now I'm sure there's some really
I can
fringe
see his
cases you
point
can
there.
point to where that kind of thing did happen,
but I will say, him supporting that mindset, I gotta say. I've done my research. Okay, there's just a lot. I'm just gonna say, I mean, just saying, you know, it's like, I'm gonna mark that as an L. I'm gonna mark that as an L. Okay? But I'm waiting for a W. I'm waiting for a W. Let's keep going.
but it's not common. Thus, I didn't think that's what was being referred to in the conversation. And it is, again, my mistake for not recognizing that at that moment it was being spoken about literally. So all that shit that people keep
Okay, so now I want to know what he's about to say, though.
About how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just fucked up. Like, it's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments. Like the one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point.
Him saying that he's a bad debater, I don't know. I don't feel like you don't need to be a professional debater in order to defend your stance on certain objects. Debate does not relate to holding your own opinion. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I just said. So it's just like he doesn't know how to defend his stance on things. It's like, I'm not a debater, so I don't know how to debate people. It's like, you don't need to know how to debate somebody in order to just simply express how you feel or provide. Like, there are such things as wrong opinions. In my opinion, you can have a wrong opinion. You really can. But he's trying to defend himself in a way that's not working.
I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneeko was spouting about.
This entire thing is brain rot,
why I thought
Charlie.
This was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports in this subject, and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, go through the process of learning about it. And when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, it wasn't a point where I was trying
Charlie,
to say, well,
you tried to relate playing a sport to transitioning. Charlie, you're not making this easy. Please, Charlie. Let's have some W takes here, okay?
changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball and
You said
soccer.
it.
Like, it's not what I
You
was
said
trying
it.
to get at, but because I didn't elaborate
Now.
on it and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's what
All right.
people have harped on a lot.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like I said, I am not a debater. Like, I didn't go in
You
here
can't make that
expecting to
argument.
win.
You're not a
So I have
debater.
nothing
That's not
prepared here for
you made
this
it. You
inundation
made
of outrageous questions.
You made a shit take. You gotta own it. Have a backbone. Have a backbone. Explain yourself. I want you to explain
and
yourself.
Tangents. Like, there was a point where Sneeko was trying to get me to say white power. Like, the whole thing was a fucking mess. It was, without a doubt, probably the worst debate that video has ever been cursed with. And I really regret not doing a better job here. It's not something I should have even done in the first place. I just have a tendency to really hope for the best out of people. And I was really hoping that
That's a dumb
I
mistake.
and most people were wrong about Sneeko's perspective on the age of consent. However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. He was very adamant about this position, and I did a terrible job in arguing with him, and I did a terrible job of articulating my beliefs. I am supportive of the LGBTQ+, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about. I just wish I did a better
can
job
respect
of
him.
expressing that. To be open and honest here, and I've talked about this a lot, I've always treated my channel kind of like a diary for myself, which is why I just talk about so much different nonsense and so many things that I know a lot of people don't give a fuck about, but some of it's fun for me to talk about, or some of
But
it's
the
just things
Chronically
I care
Online
about.
do.
So being totally
They do.
honest, I used to treat the internet as an escape from my dog shit real life. Truly unhappy, really hated most of everything about myself, and the internet was my escape from it. But now it's really become that real life is the escapism for me now. Like, I love posting and creating things, but I don't like interacting with the internet around me anymore.
I'll give you one for that.
And it's something that I started to realize a couple months ago, and I've talked about it
Give
on
him
stream
2
a little
tallies?
bit
No,
now.
that's not how
Because
that
I've
works.
covered
You get
so
one
many, like,
tally
drama
for
stories
each
and
take.
everything, it's pretty much
That's how it is
all
on
that
here.
I ever get told about when I'm streaming, and it's become such a massive headache, and it's just constant negativity that I'm fully flooded with, like, at all hours. Like, I am in like this human centipede of eating someone's ass while having my ass eaten with even more things that I'm being demanded to like talk about, where everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for like the last.
That's
6
what
or 8
happens when
months,
you're
I feel,
playing on the
where
internet.
if I
It's a
talk about
lose-lose
something, it's a
situation.
problem.
You
Even if
can't.
something as cut and dry as like
Ugh.
Toriko having sex with a 17-year-old being bad. I caught a lot of shit for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man, the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then
Yeah.
accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So
Yeah,
it just really
yeah,
feels
yeah.
like a rock and a hard place
Yeah.
where regardless,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
going to be a massive flood of negativity. And a huge critique of me that I've always seen is Charlie's a fence sitter. He's just a fucking fence-sitting enlightened centrist cuck, this and that.
Let
And
him
I've
let him
always
speak.
said for the entire time I've been on the internet, I'm not special. I'm literally just a normal guy who got very lucky. I just sit here, joke about shit, talk about my opinion on things,
can
and
respect
nothing
that.
else. I don't have a unique perspective on things. I don't have deep insight into the
How much of this is left? 4 minutes.
vicissitudes of certain things. I am literally just a guy
This is brain
who
rot.
yaps, has some fun, talks about shit, does some wacky stuff.
Can we
once in a
move on?
while,
Yes.
and
I'm
that's
wanting
it.
to move
It's
on.
just not that deep. But because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last, I'd say like the last 2 years, it's really popped off
Oh,
as
100%.
me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like
I have one thought. I haven't. Hold on.
it's all this like nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary where that's apparently like a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about, and I talk about it. I am legitimately just an average, well, below average height guy who's about to turn 30.
I don't know where he's going with this, but I will say this. Charlie, you've had an opinion. I'm not even going to speak to him directly. He'll never see this. He probably never will, whatever. But I do think it's important that if you express your opinion, like, in all honesty, he hasn't changed his opinion. He really hasn't. Even though he talked about where he went wrong, he hasn't really changed his opinion. But here's the thing. It's like, if you have an opinion, if you ever, and you share that opinion publicly, and then if you ever change that opinion, people don't respect you after that. You can't. It's crazy. Like it's amazing what your change of opinion will do to your to the people that follow you. You can have an opinion one day, and if a lot of people agree with that opinion, and then you change that opinion, the people that followed you lose all respect for you. That's just because they're retards, right? I mean, it's just like people. It's almost like people can't mentally comprehend that an opinion can change. I've had opinions change on multiple things in life. And if people, but it just goes to show that the internet and the world around you, because people don't like to educate themselves. People don't like to learn about things. Once you learn about something and you educate yourself on something, like your opinion can change. It's just like, that's the problem with the internet. It's just like, but then again, if you have an opinion, stick to your opinion. Be a man about it. Now, you should never change your opinion simply because other people disagree with your opinion. Now, if they provide something to you that changes your stance on something, then that's fine. But simply changing your opinion because the first opinion that you shared got a lot of backlash and you don't want that backlash anymore, that makes you a coward. Honestly, that makes you a coward. If Charlie does that in this video, then he's a complete coward.
I'm
Just
not
add it to the list of
spitting
L's.
Hot takes out the wazoo here. I'm just being myself. That's all this channel ever has been. And now
You
it
can
becomes super controversial to do that if it's not like, picking sides on everything.
Yeah, I can
It's
agree with
very
that.
Frustrating. For the longest time,
True,
it was just
I would
me
agree with
having
that.
fun. And
Yeah,
for the most
yeah.
part, it still is. But I've started to recognize over the last few months that some of the things I do just really aren't fun for me to do, and I've been doing them out of obligation. Mainly internet drama. When I initially started covering drama so many years ago now, it was fun because it wasn't as serious. Like the stories were a lot, more quirky. It was easy to get invested because it was kind of just like a soap opera, like a really dumb soap opera. But recently it's been much more serious, and I feel the need to talk about these things because a lot of them are extremely serious with very important topics to discuss. But it has become draining. As much as I never wanted to admit it, I've started to recognize that my mood is immediately impacted by whatever I read on Twitter in the morning.
Oh,
If
100%.
that's some horrible stuff about a
This world is
creator
in
or what
shambles.
have you,
100%.
it immediately affects my
2024 is
entire
the
day and
year.
my whole
Oh my
outlook
crap.
on the day.
Everything coming
Now
out
I
about
know,
everybody,
whack, all the
2024 seems to
wambulance
be
gets some
the
french
year
fries,
of
just
exposure.
fucking whining about having to talk about drama. What a stupid
All that was
problem
hidden
to
will be
upset
unsealed in
about. But
2024.
I'm just trying to explain that it hasn't been as fun recently. It
Amen.
hasn't. And the main thing, if you've been around the channel for a while, is I've always wanted this to be fun and never feel like a job. And as hard as it is
What,
for me to
okay.
admit this, a lot of this
What-
kind of stuff,
What are we doing?
it has just started to feel like less fun and more of, well, gotta do this because I'm expected to. Like anytime I go live, most of chat is just telling me about the latest in whatever's happening in the creator space or
Welcome to the
some
internet,
other, like,
Charlie.
extremely negative thing going on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all about that once I turn stream off. So then I spend a few hours learning about these things, and it's
You
all
really
just
don't have to do
really
that,
upsetting
though.
Stuff. Like, it's
If
not
you want to
happy.
be,
It's all very.
if you want to be
sad, bad
absent from the
stuff,
world around you, you
and
can.
it's been making
You're not
me
obligated to learn
not
about certain
happy.
things.
So I definitely think I'll be slowing down on covering internet-related drama or like drama in general. I'll still talk about like really wacky stories and shit like that.
You don't have to give your opinion on anything. It's just like now, it's a business. People don't understand that like YouTube, like speaking on issues, it's a business. It's for money. There's a lot of money in controversy. There's a lot of money in appeasing mobs as well. If you can appease to the majority of the opinions that people have, people will watch you. People will give you clicks. People will give you views. That's where the money is at. There's also a lot of money in speaking out against certain social norms or certain, communities and things like that. It's at the end of the day, people are like, I'm just doing this for fun. It's like, well, based on what they're doing and the content that they're creating, you can change. If Charlie wants to change that, he can change that. He can just stay away from things that happen in the world. But if you're gonna just like tiptoe around that, you can't. People are gonna want to know your opinion, and you either produce content that people subscribe to you because they like the content that you make. So stick to your content. People either will watch you because they like the content that you make, or they won't watch you because they don't like the content that you make. But at the end of the day, if you're making content, you should make content because you should make content that you like to make, not make content that like people are expecting you to make. It's a social dilemma. It really is. Because you want to make money and you want people to watch you, so you feel forced to make content that people want to watch versus doing what makes you happy versus doing what makes other people happy. I mean, it's weird. I applaud Charlie for this. But whatever. It's just it's sad. The internet is just straight up trash. I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of good on the internet, and there's also just a lot of bad. I mean, in my opinion, evil runs this world now like hell has no vacancy. It's just crazy. But nonetheless, we got to move on. Anyway, I'm done watching this video, to be honest.